afternoon, IG family, Facebook family. Good afternoon, and welcome to Queen's, where we're making curry in my kitchen. Namaste, and welcome to the Queen's Curry Kitchen. Today, I am making a vegetable that is absolutely hated by a lot of people, absolutely loved by certain others, and it's an acquired taste. You may have seen this weird looking vegetable in the supermarket, right? And it's called Karela. That means bitter gourd. So let me teach you a little Hindi. It's called Karela, right? So Karela is what it's called, and that's what we are making today. I went ahead and got the process started, but before I do the demonstration of how we're going to handle this vegetable, I'm going to give you some quick tips on how to actually peel this stuff, right? So we are going to, when you buy it, try to go for smaller size ones. Don't buy very big ones because oftentimes they have already ripened and the seed pods are ready to burst, or the seeds have turned red and the skin inside is yellow, and that is a vegetable that you cannot use. So when you buy it, you actually trim the tops and the bottoms, and then you gently scrape the skin from the top so you get a smooth and resist the urge to take away too much. So this skin that we're peeling off is actually gold. That's where all the nutrients are. So try not to throw it out. And I actually like to use it. I add it right back to my vegetable and I use it as a part of the dish, right? Now there are several ways to make Karela. Either you can slice it from here and fill dry spices in there, or you can cut them into medallions like I'm doing right now. Actually, come a little forward. You can cut them into medallions. And when you do that, you'll come across two or three different kinds of seed textures. So the soft ones will actually cut right through. They'll allow you to cut right through, right? So you see how soft these seeds are? They allow you to cut right through. It's going to cut right through. And if it's a tougher seed, it's not going to let you cut. So then you just scoop out the pod and throw the seeds, but continue to cut these medallions exactly like I'm showing you. So this is one that we cannot use because it's obviously overripe and it's just we have to discard it. So it's turned yellow. If you see red seeds inside or if you see yellow flesh, that means that vegetable cannot be used. So that's gonna go in the trash. So what my mom does in order to kill some of the bitterness of it is that she soaks them in salt water, in hot water with salt, and apparently it's supposed to draw out some of the bitterness, right? So I've done some prep ahead of time. This part is the only one that's probably not going to get to be in the salt water, but it's just a really simple fix. Some people like to cook it with buttermilk. Some people like to add some lemon juice. There are many tips and tricks that have been done over the years just to make this thing a little more palatable. So I've gone ahead and started caramelizing these white onions. It's going to have an inherent sweetness to it because of the onions. I added hot oil to the pan and I added some cumin seeds and I added some onions. You can see the onions are starting to caramelize. Now most recipes actually call for this to be deep fried and then added to the vegetable. I'm of course not a fan of deep frying anything. So I'm going to actually lift off the onions after they're caramelized, and then I will shallow fry the bitter gourd and I will add back everything. Okay. I also got two potatoes that I've cut really thinly into slices, and this is what it looks like. Okay, now while this is happening, I'm also going to go ahead and add some ginger and garlic, and this is something that this is about 20 cloves of garlic and equal amount of ginger in weight. You can add it to the hot oil first, you can add it later, there's really no right or wrong. And if you feel like, it's not, you need to add a little more oil. So traditionally, the part of the country where my mother comes from, bitter gourd is served as a first course with a nice tall mound of hot rice, and these little medallions are actually fried with hot mustard oil, and they are served almost crisp just to clear the palate before you start an entire gastronomic Bengali meal. So that's kind of like the norm. But like I said, most people just like to fry the hell out of it, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. Uh, so that might be another video waiting to happen. So this is a taste that is actually an acquired taste. No one actually uh, was born into this world saying that I love Karela. So just like sushi, just like kombucha, just like a lot of bitter greens, this is 100% an acquired taste. You never really start to like it unless you are a certain age, and you have to be exposed to it several times in your life in order to develop a liking for it. But of course, they say there are a lot of health benefits, especially for diabetics. And so this is a vegetable that you must include in your diet if you have blood sugar situation going on. That's what I've heard. My father, who was also diabetic, used to actually take an Ayurvedic preparation that was made with Karela powder, which means that all of these skins were dried and sun dried and then ground into a powder to do that. And then he would take that on an empty stomach with a glass of water or something. That was his routine for many, many years. All right, so the onions are getting some kind of a color. I'm going to remove them. I just actually caramelize the onions to get a little bit of a head start. When you're actually making this at home, then shallow fry the bitter gourd first and then add the onion so that you don't have to keep going back and forth in and out of your pan. Just going to set this on the side. It calls for a little more oil. See, that's why I'm not a fan of this thing, because it just calls for a lot of oil. Ugh. And I'm not a fan of that. So, of course, all the old wives and all the elders of the family will tell you, yeah, so what if it's oily? Just eat a little bit less. No, just try to figure out an alternate way to make it, right? So I'm just showing you the traditional way to make it. But if you have a more efficient way that's not so oil based, then definitely share that with us. All right, so I'm just going to take a minute and say a quick hello to UBQTS. Sorry for the interrupted broadcast. I think we're having some trouble with connectivity today. So we are making bitter gourd. I'm just going to squeeze the water out from this gently, and I'm going to throw it in and just give it a shallow fry so that it gets a nice charred color. The only thing that I put in the water was some salt, and you can see I've kept the peels, the skins of it whole. I haven't chopped them into smaller pieces. A lot of people like to chop them into pieces. I just kind of like that bite full, and it's a different texture altogether once it's cooked. So I like it because even the onions that I've got are in long slices. So I feel like it's a good play of textures. But again, flatter your fancy, whatever works for you, honey, make it your own. I'm going to give it a quick stir, and I'm going to fry all of them in one shot. I'm not going to go back and forth. So this is a very traditional way of making it in the north of India where I come from. And oftentimes the simplest things end up being the tastiest. So if you've ever tried your hands at this, I would love to see what you have to say about it. This is a vegetable that most people hate, but it has a lot of health benefits, especially for diabetics and pre-diabetics. So try to eat it at least a couple of times or 3 times a week in moderation. Don't fry the crap out of it. That's the key thing, to not fry the hell out of it. Just a quick wipe of hands. I'm going to turn off the heat. Now there is already salt in here, so I won't be going ahead and adding too much salt. I will, however, add some of my dry spices. And one of those things will be turmeric powder. I'm going to add some coriander seed powder. So this is fresh coriander seed that is available on the Queen's Curry Kitchen website. You can always go in there and place an order. If you want to order the masala box, it's also there. I think I only have one in stock, so the last one is in stock right now. If you want to get it, now is a good time to do that. It's www.queenscurrykitchen.com shop or shop online. I think that's what the link is, but if you go on the website, it should be out there. Okay, so keep stirring this. I'm also going to go ahead and add some Indian curry powder. Okay, so that's what I'm adding. Betsy is here. Hi, Betsy. Welcome to the Queen's Curry Kitchen. Yes, it looks amazing, but I'm telling you, it takes a few tries before you can actually fall in love with these bitter gourds. It certainly is an acquired taste. Just like you have to have a taste for chicory, and if you have to have a taste for some of your greens that you put in your salad that have a bitter bite, it definitely is an acquired taste, I have to say. So a little more of the curry powder, and that's good. So I'm just dry sauteing this. There is a little bit of oil, but I'm not about to put any more. You can see that my powdered spices are sticking to the bottom, so I may need to actually put a little bit of water into this pan just to keep it going. And it'll also help to create the steam to cook this out. Right? Now, where are the potatoes, you will ask? Well, they're going into, and we definitely need a whole lot of steam in this dish because we have to cook these potatoes. These are completely raw. What the potatoes do is they help to absorb some of the extra salt that may be clinging to the vegetables when we soaked it in salt water. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. And of course, you will taste it. You will adjust the seasoning according to your taste buds before you are ready to serve this dish. And you can choose, in order for you to get that sour tang of tomatoes, you can either choose to use tomatoes or you can use another souring agent. So my mother always uses a little bit of Greek yogurt, and she says that that completely kills the bitterness of the vegetable, and it makes it a lot more palatable. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as well. But you can definitely use tomato puree for that little sweetness. You can do all kinds of tricks, right? So you see, it's pretty dry right now, and it will definitely need a lot more water in order to create the steam and cook completely. I'm going to add back the onions that we had fried. Whoa, still a lot of oil in here. And at some point, I may need to add some more of my dry spices. So there is a very interesting alternative that this is made, and that technique involves slitting it through the middle, filling all the dry spices, and then tying it with twine, with thread, and then deep frying them so that the spices don't come out of the slits. And so before you eat it, you have to literally unravel it on your plate before you can eat it, right? So I'm going to give it a quick toss. Just trying to keep it, and this is almost semi-dry, so it's supposed to be eaten with rotis and chapatis. It's not something that's supposed to be eaten as a wet curry dish. So that's what we're trying to go for. I do have some yogurt here, which I'm going to put right now. It's not a lot, it's just about a teaspoonful. So I'm going to put that in. So in every family, there are some tips or tricks that somebody has tried in order to cut down the bitterness of a Karela. Some have been successful, some have not been successful, and for every trick that has been successful, people hold on to that technique for dear life, and then every new daughter-in-law coming into the family tries to replicate that recipe so that the elders of the family don't find the bitterness offensive, but yet they can get the pleasure of having Karela on their plate. By then, most of them are diabetic, so they definitely appreciate that on the menu. Yeah, that's how traditional Indian families used to work. Of course, now the scene is completely different. A lot has changed. I'm going to go ahead and check for salt. So you can either use tomatoes or you can use yogurt. I've chosen to use yogurt. You can also use dry mango powder, which I probably will towards the end, but not right now. I'm just going to give it a good toss, and I will check for salt. Yeah, so it definitely needs more salt. It's quite bitter, and depending on the time of year that you're eating it or whatever time of the harvest it is, it will be bitter. I think it may need some tomato puree just to counter that bitterness. I don't think that yogurt is going to cut it today. So, always be open to what your farmers markets vegetables are saying to you, because they will be different, which is why I encourage cooking with intuition rather than cooking with fixed recipes. I feel like that can be quite misleading. So a lot of people get held up on having an exact recipe when they're trying to cook, but I always tell them that, even in my classes, this is what I teach, that whether you're a new cook or you're a seasoned chef, always learn to cook with your intuition rather than through the book. First of all, because we are not trying to do any production, so we don't need as consistent of a result. So it's not like we're trying to get a cream, or we're not trying to bake something that has to be perfect. It's not a chemical science. But there's definitely an element of intuition, and depending on whatever season you're going to go buy your produce, it will taste different. So I always encourage my students to cook by intuition. I do give fixed recipes that they can look at so that they won't have the anxiety of not knowing where to turn. But ideally, if you eyeball something, we can be friends. Certainly be friends. Okay, so I've taken out some tomato puree from my fridge. Cover that back up. I will keep an eye on this to see if it's needing a little touch of moisture or not. Right now might be a little too soon, but I'm gonna get in there. You can hear the sizzle, so the yogurt actually does help to release and break down some of the moisture, right? And this is a non-stick pan, so it really should not be sticking to the bottom, but strangely it is. I'm gonna go ahead and add the tomato puree. You can add fresh tomatoes as well, it's your choice. As a finishing touch for the garnish, I'm going to put some ginger juliennes, and I will definitely put a ton of cilantro. And I might put some lemon juice as well, just to counter the bitterness of the gourds. But Karela it is. And the funny thing is that when in the Indian culture, when you meet somebody who's pretty nasty and like not well natured, it's very common to call him a Karela. So next time you meet somebody who's nasty and not nice to you, instead of calling them a bad name, just call them this vegetable. It just explains a lot. So when somebody says, "So how was this person?" You're like, he was such a Karela. Then you know that it was not smooth, he was not pleasant, he was not sociable, can't be anybody's friend. Okay, so I'm gonna add back some of the water from my soaked potatoes, just to create some moisture, right? And in the end, I will give a finishing touch of some garam masala, which will go on top, and I'm gonna add some cilantro. I'm gonna add some ginger juliennes. By the time this dish is done, you will see that the potatoes will actually be completely cooked, so you'll literally be able to cut through them without any resistance. All the onions will be dark brown, and they will caramelize and reduce further. And these slices of gourd that I've cut, they will also not be so hard anymore. So they will have a lot of give. They will also mellow down. So this whole dish will get reduced a little bit, but nonetheless, it will be delicious, and it's going to be a labor of at least, I would say, another 10 to 12 minutes, and it should be ready. So, of course, I don't want you to linger on for 10 to 12 minutes, because I do understand you have a life and you have better things to do rather than see me make these Karela dishes. I also am making sambar in my kitchen right now, which I have to jump to because my Instapot just went off. So I have to finish making that. I have to make rotis that go with this Karela dish, and I'm going to make a kadai paneer. So those are the three items that I'm going to be making. So I'm going to continue what I'm doing. But if you liked what you saw, and if you would like to try out any of the recipes that you see in my videos, definitely go ahead. If you have any questions about what you saw, feel free to send me a DM for any of the classes that you want to take, or the book, or the spices that you want to order. All the information is on the website www.queenscurrykitchen.com. like always, be blissful, be flavorful. I come here every day at noon Eastern time, and I bring you something simple that you can cook in your kitchen. It's mostly plant based, although I am considering a flexitarian omnivorous menu, and I'm offering a flexitarian class with chef.co, CHEFTDOTCO, and that's an app that you can go on. I'm offering that class on Saturday. It's ginger glazed salmon and basil fried rice. So there's an omnivorous menu. If you're a flexitarian or half your family eats meat or fish and half doesn't, it might be a very good idea to register for that class. And it's a group class, so I'll be cooking on this side of the camera and you will be cooking on that side of the camera. So if that's something that you want to do this weekend, join me there. You can register at chef.co or DM me for a link, and I will be able to send you a link directly from which you can register. All right, with that being said, I am going to take your leave. I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, be blissful, be flavorful. If there's anything that you'd like me to show you how to make, I'm happy to do that. Summer is at its peak, and it's going to be over before we know it. So if you want to see any ice creams, if you want to see any cool beverages or any Indian inspired lassis or chutneys or whatever, feel free to DM. Don't be shy. This is your show, your page, so come hang out with me every day over here, and we will have more fun. I promise you. Be blissful, be flavorful, be safe out there. Everybody's really exasperated right now, so please practice kindness. And for all the people that are placing orders, I really wanted to say a huge thank you. I definitely, definitely appreciate your love and support. So thank you for all the orders that are coming in for the spices and for the books. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Until tomorrow, be well, and I will see you again in another smashing, dashing recipe. Hopefully, not the most hated vegetable, but something that's more popular. But I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, goodbye and God bless. Take good care.